Good evening, everyone. We're back with a mini show for the Fins forecast. It's been a rough week in Dolphin land, and not gonna lie, we've we saw Tua go down against the Buffalo Bills, and Dolphins weren't playing particularly well before Tua went down. But there are there is room for optimism, and there is room for us to still have hope for this season. And tonight we're going to be discussing Tua's contract, especially in regards to what happens if he retires, what happens moving forward with him, kind of preparing for every possible scenario. Josh has been looking at this a lot throughout the week, and he wanted us to kind of bring this to you guys. So, Josh, no camera tonight, but I'm going to turn it over to you. And
Yeah, man, I
go ahead, man.
appreciate the intro and appreciate the passover. And yeah, I apologize to everyone. My camera doesn't seem to be working. So I will try to get it fixed between this show and the next one. But for now, sit back and enjoy all the math. I made sure I wasn't doing any live math. And there's a lot of ishes, so 24-ish, 25-ish numbers, just
Yeah.
to, so that we don't get hammered by the fans who actually sit down and do the math. I thought it was important that, us as fans, specifically us on the show, really understand what the kind of higher level main options are for our Dolphins when it comes to Tua's contract. Now, we understand that he got placed on IR. I think that is brilliant. I think that is a good move for both him personally, for the franchise, for the league. I mean, everything involved, right? Because what we don't want to happen is the debacle of last year. Was 2 years ago, where he got a concussion, got thrown in, got a concussion, got thrown in. The league was looking into us for mishandling the situation, and it was just horrible media. And because he's on IR, and because there are decisions to be made on both parts, right? Tua needs to make a decision first and foremost. He needs to decide if he wants to continue to play, if that makes sense for him and his family, if that makes sense for him health-wise, for the longevity of either his career and or him as a human. And then once that decision is made, and I think we all can agree on the show that it most likely the competitor in him, I mean, barring any kind of third-party medical advisors telling him the next hit you take might kill you, he's going to suit back up as soon as he can, right? I think that is a foregone conclusion, at least for now. And so assuming that he makes that decision, the Dolphins also have a decision to make. And the Dolphins, when they negotiated to his contract, and I'll go into there are four kind of higher level options, right? High level scenarios, if you will. When the Dolphins negotiated to his contract, they made sure that they built in and out after this year, which I will get to. They also have insurance worth close to $50 million, barring any injuries, should they decide to part ways. I mean, there's a ton of things. The Dolphins were really smart about this. Now, wanted to give a shout out to overthecap.com and Kyle Krabs, who inspired this show, inspired all of these numbers, specifically Over the Cap, with all of the minute details and how in depth they go onto contracts and values and all of that, among many, many other things. So I just want to make sure we don't get caught plagiarizing. All right. So there are four options. I'm going to go through the first option in as much detail as I could garner with math. And I think all of you guys on the show at least know math isn't my strong suit. So I apologize if I got some of the numbers wrong. But so if Tua decides to retire due to multiple head injuries, okay, so this is his choice to retire, not medically forced to retire by the league, not the team deciding he needs to go away or we need to part ways or whatever the case is. This is Tua sitting down with his family, making a decision as a non-player, saying, okay, this is in the best interest of me. Goes to the front office and says, you know what, guys, I'm done. Very similar to Andrew Luck, right? I mean, if you think about Andrew Luck in his prime, not saying Tua was as good as Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck, I thought, was generational, but he took some injuries and he decided it was time to hang up his cleats. So let's say that Tua decides to retire. Tua would receive a total approximation of $43 million, which is this 2024 signing bonus plus his salary. Okay. Tua's remaining contract and everything else, right? So he retires, I think it's 2025, can be processed as a post June 1st. So if the Dolphins decide to process the rest of his contract and release him, if you will, or from their books as a post June 1st cut, meaning that there's a dead cap of about $33.5 million, that gets split up over 2025 and 2026. Those cap hits, the cap hit in 2025 is $2.8-ish million. And in 2026, the cap hit is 25-ish. I'm going to use ish a lot, guys, so bear with me. 25-ish million dollars. When you look at what Tua is currently on the books for, he's on the books for $39 million. So if he were to walk away, the team would be saving cap space in 2025. If you compare what we would be, what would the hit on the cap would be for Tua walking away versus what we would actually be paying him should he decide to stay. Outside of all of the above mentioned money, so all of the money that I just mentioned, 43 million, 33 million in dead cap, everything else, including the guaranteed money on all of the remaining bits of his contract, would be forfeited should he decide to retire. So Miami would be completely clear outside of, the 43 this year, cap hit in 25 of 8.2, cap hit in 26 of 25. Now, if Tua's injury does not allow him to play, meaning he cannot be cleared to play, or what the league calls medically forced to retire, Miami would be on the hook rather, for about 120 million total. Okay, so this is kind of a horrible scenario for Miami. Horrible in the sense that, Tua's health as a person is first and foremost the most important thing, right? But as a franchise, this would be the lesser of two preferred options if one of them has to happen. Miami would be on the hook for about 120 million total, which is his 167 million total value minus his $43 million signing bonus, which has already been paid out. And the cap hits, or the contract values that Miami would be responsible for in 2024 would be the 9.5 that he's on the books for. In 2025 would be 39 million. In 2026, it would be 52.4 million. And in 2027, it would be around 20 million. Okay. It's important to note that in this very specific scenario, Miami has just under $50 million of an insurance policy that they took out in case Tua gets injured and he is medically forced to retire. What does that mean? That means call it 50 for a round conversational. I think it's 48 and change or 49 and change. Essentially close to $50 million would then get put back into our cap pool, cap bucket, if you will, in 2025 out of that 120 million that we would be on the hook for. Okay. The third scenario, Miami made sure to build in an out after this year. Right. So when they were negotiating this contract, all of us fans, not all of us fans, there were a decent chunk of fans that were anti-signing to a contract right now. Let him play out the last year, his fifth year, show that he can be healthy for 2 years in a row, so on and so on and so on. Well, Miami decided that, okay, well, we want to lock him up before, the rest of the quarterbacks get contracts and this gets out of hand. But we're going to put into the contract an out after this year. Should you get injured again and you can't prove to stay healthy, or the wheels fall off and so on and so forth. Okay. So in this scenario, 2026 salary is not guaranteed until March 14th of 2025. Now that's important to note. Okay. This would essentially mean that Miami is on the hook for his contract this year, which is about 32 million-ish. Oh, I'm sorry. For his contract this year, and about 32 million-ish in 2025, right? So 32 million against the cap in 2025. Assuming that he is not waived for any injury reasons, but are then clear of everything going forward, right? So we get out, we pay him this year, he gets 32 million for whatever his contract would have been next year, and he's done. And we're done. We can part ways. See you later. Kind of shake hands, wish you the best. The last option is what I think is really going to happen is Miami continue with the current contract. Once he's healthy, he jumps back on the field. He plays, he stays healthy, hopefully, knock on wood. and leads us back to the promised land in the playoffs, to where we get our first win in the playoffs, hopefully, right? That's what we all want. Those are kind of the high level options when you look into how Tua's contract was negotiated and how it was formulated. I mean, obviously there are a million other minute little things that would take hours and hours and hours for a professional contract negotiator to go through with you, let alone me on podcast. So I kept it as high level as I could based on the information that I could find and based on what I heard and what I've read and so on and so forth. You know, I think Tua has said he does not plan on retiring right now. Kind of has to say that right now.
Yes.
Right. Because if not, he immediately forfeits a bunch of money. I mean, I'm not saying that that's how Tua was thinking, but let's be honest. Right. But I will be very curious to see what I think he's going to see third party, a couple doctors to get some second and third and fourth opinions, which I think is very smart. That have those doctors are outside of the NFL that have Tua's best interests at heart, not the team's. Not saying that that's the case, but I think we've all seen, you know, instances of where a team doctor, for example, or someone contracted by the team will make a more team friendly decision.
Yeah.
So that's what I have. I'll open it up for discussion now. Obviously, there was a lot to go through, a lot of numbers. But go ahead, gentlemen. What are your thoughts?
All right. Well, Steve, I'll start with you, man. That was a lot of information to take in.
Well, for sure, scenario 2 sucks.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's $120 million that we quite frankly don't have to just blow on a player that's not going to play. So, I mean, if he doesn't want to play, him retiring on his own free will is just what he's going to do. But I wholeheartedly think he's going to play. I think the contract's going to get honored. I see what Josh is saying about, you know, with the, I don't know if you use the word restructure or not, but with, you know, some sort of pending injury clause that would be favorable to Miami, I think would be fair to both fans and Miami. Just, you know, locking down that much money and not being able to play is tough for us to choke on. But and at the same pace, I don't want this guy, you know, I don't want to use all my phrases so early, but I really don't want him getting coloring books for Christmas, you know, from here on out, if he keeps playing and keeps getting these concussions. Like it's not something anybody wants to see. And, you know, this is a football podcast, and I've brought up, you know, concussions and knockouts with MMA multiple times, and these guys play. These guys continue their career. You know, some of these guys get cleanly knocked out 2-3 times in a year, you know, and other camps make these people sit out for a full year. So, you know, there's a lot to learn from other sports about concussions, and as bad as it looks, people do recover, although you do continue to get them easier. So CTE is a real thing. But and you know, I've had concussions, and the last one I had was last January, dude. I was off for over a month, like completely off. Work gave me time, like sleeping was hard at night. Waking up was even harder. Just thinking, correlating sentences and remembering words was hard. I can only imagine plays and trying to recite a play back to the line. Like there's going to be plenty of time, and him going on IR and having till week 8, I think he's going to kind of sit on his decision that he wants to play till then. And I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him play for the whole season.
Yeah. I mean, there was an interview about this. I mean, it's been all over the news, right? All over sports media. And there's a former player, I forgot who it was. Maybe you guys saw the interview where he had a concussion and he said, "Yep, I got up just fine," just like Tua did, right? I mean, he got up, he walked to the locker room. And this player said that he got hit, had a concussion on the field, got up, was fine, got to the locker room, was in the locker room in the first quarter, I think it was. The whole game went by. The players came in, and his reality snapped back, and he could not remember. The last thing he remembered was when he got hit in the first quarter. Now, he was in the locker room for the whole rest of the game, did not remember a single thing.
Completely normal. Yep. It happens to a lot of athletes, hockey players as well. You get your bell rung in the first period, and all of a sudden you're at the end of the game.
Over.
You're in the locker room and you're getting ready to play. Like I've heard of guys like being in the locker room after the game, like getting ready to play the game that they got their bell rung in. Like that, I forget the player that I've heard. It was 10, 15 years ago I read this story, but it happened. It's happened then. It still happens today. And like I said earlier, you can heal from this, or you recover from it, but to heal from it is totally different. Like your brain will always have those scar tissue.
Yeah, I've had multiple concussions,
spots.
and
it's
not
so
fun,
like
man. It's not.
No, but you're healed. You're a normal person. You can go out and play fun soccer.
Depends on who you ask.
But at the same stroke, your brain has never totally healed. You're always going to have those scars, and you'll always be able to get concussions easier and easier and easier. And through time is the contract of, is the contract worth the health? And that's where I would just hope scenario 2 isn't the one that falls in our lap. But hey, man, I've said it before. I think Miami Stadium's been built on an Indian burial ground, and it wouldn't surprise me if scenario 2 happens.
Well, so look, we're going to discuss all of this and a lot more during our live show, and we're going live in about 12 minutes. Yep. So we're going to go into that show with all the numbers that Josh just laid out in mind, and we're going to kind of flesh this out. All right. So look, guys, Josh, great job compartmentalizing all that.
Thank you.
That was a lot. That was a lot to take in. That was a lot. It was a lot to put together from your perspective. But the Dolphins have decisions to make going forward, and Tua has decisions to make going forward, and none of these decisions are easy decisions, and they're going to be second guessed and questioned by everyone. No matter what happens.
Yeah, there's no right answer, unfortunately.
Yeah, there isn't. So we're going live in 10 minutes. Steve, I'm going to have you hold your thought.
Yep.
We're going live in 10 minutes. So
come join us.
And we'll see you soon.